What did I get? Kyla said she'd been waiting all day.
She went and got my shoes. Happy birthday to me.
Hi, my name is Corinne Holiday McNeil, and my daughter Kyla came to me a little bit ago and asked if she could do a documentary on me. So, not quite sure how I feel about it because I don't love being in front of the camera, but of course I'll do anything for her. So here I am talking about me and my life. I've not had an easy life, but it's been an incredibly blessed life so far. I was born in Detroit to Carol and Ward Sussex. I had an older sister, Laura. She was 3 years older than me, and a younger brother, Ken, 3 years younger than me. So I was a middle child. We lived in a modest home at 7 Mile and Evergreen, which today is not the best of areas, but it's still fun to go back and visit. My earliest childhood memories are just having a lot of fun. We came from a generation where the kids would go outside to play, and we would not literally come in until it was dark. We would play outside all day long. It was before we had computers and cell phones and all that stuff, so we just had to make believe, use our imaginations, and just have fun together. My sister and I did have typical sister fights, although I adored her, always looked up to her, and my brother and I had a special bond, I think, because he was the only boy and because he was the baby. We moved when I was 10 out to Clarkston. My parents built their first home, and that was a really great experience. We lived on a lake, so we got to ice skate in the winter and swim all during the summer. When I was 15, I met my first serious boyfriend. His name was Jeff. It was meant to be. We fell in love. It was young first love, but it was very intense. We were together for 3 years. He was a year older than me, and I was a senior in high school. He was first year at Marquette, Michigan. My friend and I had taken a trip to Marquette, and I'm really, really glad that I had that time with him, because 2 weeks later he was due to come home for midwinter break, and I can remember so vividly where I was at the time. I was sitting on the floor in my living room watching TV. I think my family was around me. I remember everybody being home, and my phone in my room rang. And I'm not sure why, because this would have never happened, but my dad went to answer my phone. And looking back now, I don't think it was coincidence, really. But it was just so unusual that he would go answer my phone. So he did, and he called me into the bedroom, and he wrapped his arms around me, and he told me that Jeff had died. And my whole world stopped. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't see straight. I probably started screaming uncontrollably, and then I grabbed the phone, and his mom was on the phone, and I asked her what happened, and there had been a really, really bad snowstorm that day, and of course, coming from up north, the weather was even worse, and the professors had let them leave early for the day, and he was killed on impact, along with the girl that was sitting next to him. To say that my life changed forever is an understatement. At that age, I didn't know how to process that kind of grief and that much pain, and he literally was my world. We talked about me moving up to campus and living in the couples housing and eventually getting married. And so yeah, my life pretty much stopped. My senior year of high school was, to say the least, not what I thought it was going to be. And so I became pretty inclusive, trying to deal with the stress and the depression and processing all of that. And so I waited a long time to get into another relationship because I wasn't ready, which was good. And some years passed and I healed as much as I could. And I decided to go to cosmetology school. I knew from an early age that that's what I wanted to do. And I went to school to be a hairdresser. And when I graduated, I actually took a little bit diversion in my career and I became an esthetician. And so a little bit more time had passed, and then I met my first serious relationship, I'd have to say, after Jeff was Eric. And he was had a larger than life personality and kind of swept me off my feet, and he was the first interracial relationship that I would enter. This was at a time in the early 80s that it was not widely accepted. There were even people in my own family that I did not get support from. This was a very difficult situation for me because I had no prejudice and could not understand bigotry. Love has no color, and the person is the most important thing. So I decided to, or he actually called and said he was going to move to California and did I want to come? And I thought, oh my gosh, this sounds like such an incredible adventure. So I sold everything I had, I quit my job, and we packed up and we moved. We didn't have jobs, we didn't even have a place to live. But the excitement of it all and being in California of all places was honestly pretty incredible. I got pregnant with my first son at 28 and we were ecstatic to be parents. I was scared, but I knew that I always wanted to be a mom, that was the thing that above all else, that's what I wanted in my life. So we welcomed our firstborn, Eric Jr., on February 7th, 1991. And things were great. Life was good, but difficult. We struggled financially. It was not easy to live in California. And so at that time, I think Eric was 3. Some more signs started to happen within the marriage. And it was that time that Eric Sr. was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. So some things started to become a little more clear for me, and I didn't have a support system there, so I decided that we should go home back to Michigan where I had my family, and not to mention I wanted my children, now that I was starting a family, to be around their grandparents and their cousins because my sister at the time was also having children. So we packed up and headed back to Michigan, and that's when I got pregnant with my second born, Cole Avery. And sadly, it was then that it was brought to light that Eric Sr. was really struggling with drug addiction. He was an amazing person, very prideful, and it was something that he was ashamed of. And so he was very good at hiding that side of his life. And when the behavior became more erratic, there was more obvious signs, and so ultimately it did affect my marriage and having to make the decision to end the marriage because he was struggling with that so much, and I had 2 young children to raise. So I decided to leave the marriage while I was pregnant, because it just became pretty bad. He was not able to be there for the birth of our second son. His illness had progressed to a point where he just wasn't available. So Cole Avery was born on November 30th, 1995. Such a blessing, incredible. We were so glad to welcome him. Eric Sr. was in our life at the time, but he really felt, we agreed that it was because of his struggles, that it might be best that he just take his path and I take mine for the time being. So that's what we did. A while later, I met Perry, which is Kyla's dad. And he was the love of our lives. I had Cole and Eric, and he was everything to us. And so we started a life together, and we had our beautiful baby girl a year after marriage, and she was born August 11th, 2000. And I think we laughed and giggled and cried for the first month because I always wanted to have boys, but I knew I always wanted at least one daughter. And as you already know, because you know her, she's incredible. So life was good. We were happy, and sadly, Eric's addiction did ultimately take his life when Eric Jr. was 15 and Cole was 10. So it was a really hard time in their lives to have that happen. So, you know, life goes on. You pick up the pieces and you help everyone adapt. And then we, from there, decided to move into another home. So this is the house that Kyla and her brothers grew up in. Kyla was born here, brought home from the hospital, and we lived here. The house has since had a fire, unfortunately, and so they built down a big addition, so it looks different from it did when we were here. I know the kids have such good memories. I know I have good memories. We never wanted summer to end. So this house for us is really special. My older sister Laura, who suffered from lupus, was diagnosed with cancer. And it was a very aggressive cancer. It would be another trauma in my life that I still deal with today. She was 7 weeks from diagnosis to death, and she suffered immensely. She was in a lot of pain, and it's very surreal to be given the news that your loved one only has so many weeks to live. I wouldn't wish that experience on anyone. But we had a really good 7 weeks together, the best that we could, really. I think there was a lot of healing for our family. But it was difficult, to say the least. And of course, everybody in the family was affected by that, especially her children, who adored her. And then I think it was just a few years later, her firstborn son, my nephew Blake, also did suffer from addiction. And he struggled a lot with his addiction. And he was such a brilliant mind and so loved, but he struggled and he lost his battle to addiction, unfortunately. It was just, you know, just life-changing moments. Everybody has a story, and that's just part of ours. And it makes us who we are. It makes us stronger as a family. It makes us stronger as people. And it makes you realize how important and valuable life really is, and what's important in life. After my nephew Blake passed, we had a memorial service for him, and we decided to dedicate a bench to him. And so this is his bench, his plaque, and I love to come down here and just sit and meditate and have memories about Blake when I'm just really missing him. So it was from there that COVID happened. Blake actually died during the COVID. He lost his support system, and so I think that was part of, you know, him suffering. People that had depression and had to be isolated, it was really difficult for people, myself included. And I lost my job during that. I was working at Nordstrom. I had my dream job. I had gone back into my field that I love, of aesthetics, and after COVID we were called back to work, and they had cut our pay by more than 50%, and so I knew that I couldn't stay. Wasn't sure what I was going to do, where I was going to go, but my faith has always been a big part of my life, probably other than my family and my children, the biggest part of my life. I've known from a young age that why I was here and how I got here, and how important that was for me, and that God always led me along the way, and He would open another door. And it was another loss. It was devastating, but the door was opened for me to open my own business, which is when Clarkson Skin Therapy was born, where life comes full circle and shows you that nothing is impossible. I would have never ever dreamed that I could own my own business, that I would be my own boss, that I would be succeeding at something that I love so much. And it's something that I'm so grateful for, because although I've had a lot of loss in my life, this is something that makes me feel good about myself and what I do. And I value so much relationships and how I can help other people feel good about themselves. And it's really great to love what you do every day. If I was asked to give any advice, it would be to follow your passion, follow your dreams. Don't let fear hold you back. We have one life to live. Move forward and be brave, be courageous, and follow your gut. So now my path is just to grow my business and focus on what life looks like from here. And being a grandmother and being there for my family is really what life is all about.